All right, Happy New Year's. The nature of negative sensations, and particularly the intensity that goes along with, physical pain, inspires us to naturally want to stop it from happening. The natural reaction is, okay, what am I doing that's causing this blank thing to happen, right? And how can I stop it from happening? How can I fix the issue, right? Pain is the issue. How do I fix that issue, right? And it feels like this dynamic sets up the premise for some pretty interesting things. Now, in reality, it feels like no, pain doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that you caused the problem, nor does it necessarily mean that you can fix the problem. Pain is just pain. Fear is just fear. Evil is just evil. I don't know to what extent you can actually mix and match them. But this reaction that we have to pain, I think, sets up the premise for some pretty interesting things. You could think of disciplines kind of in that category, right? You have a child who plays in the road, right? Now, that's not a painful thing. At least the pain isn't directly linked to it. It's potentially dangerous. It's not a scenario in which you want your child to learn from experience, right? So you create an arbitrary connection between, hey, I spank you when you play in the road. There's no direct connection between those two things, but you contrive a connection there to get the child to connect the pain of spanking with playing in the road, so that they don't have to learn from experience, right? In the same way, abuse is kind of in the same category, where you have abusers who say, "This is why I'm doing it." In that case, it's not. It's more about control rather than discipline or safety or getting the child to control themselves or whatever. And following out from that, I guess torture would probably be in the same category. There's a reason how it's kind of weird, though. I think pain is stimulating enough that there's a reason torture doesn't really work. It's because when you put a person in enough pain, you can get them to pretty much believe anything and believe that they believe the thing, even though it's completely ridiculous. Which actually brings up an interesting theory. I had kind of mentioned this in one of my videos previously. There's a notion that thought is a type of, exertion, right? It takes effort, right? But the theory would be that if you have some sort of mental illness, or you break your mind on some really fundamental level, you could effectively end up with a mentality or a brain that would cause you pain when you think about certain things. You effectively would end up with a really bad feedback mechanism, which kind of begs the question as to what types of thoughts or beliefs would result from that type of mentality. It's a kind of interesting notion, I thought, anyways. All right, moving on. We have some videos to review. All right, this is a video by Bradley Martin's, or it's a podcast, Bradley Martin's Raw Talk. So we'll see. We'll see if we keep this in. It's but Clavicular, for those of you who don't know, is a kind of up and coming, strange sort of fellow. Yeah. Strange fellow. He takes. Yeah, never mind. We'll get into it maybe.
Go to the App Store right now. Download the Prize Pick app. Very simple.
Oh.
Just literally type in Prize Picks. All the
simple.
picks. It's really simple to use, more or less. Any stat line, go check it out, more or less. There's football, baseball, basketball, everything you could think of. You want to go do your pick somewhere, go to Prize Picks, do it there. Use code Bradley when you download the app. You could also follow me at Bradley Martin on the app. So they're going to become this place. I've been using it for years now. Download the app right now in the App Store. Use code Bradley. Again, they're going to give you $50 on your first $5 lineup. Free money. Might as well go give it a shot. Let's get into this public clav.
It's actually, there was a weird thing I was thinking of. This is kind of a bonus theory. No, I'll insert it later. Never mind.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on
Deuce.
it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Did you take anything to be ready for the interview?
No, I've been
LSD. That'll make you ready.
stopping all of the stimuli usage, trying to taper off that. So I'm just fully dialed in, sober.
Yeah.
So
how did your
fully dialed in. There's an interesting like notion surrounding the notion of like a. It feels like the idea of taking something to be comfortable around people is not a good way of doing it. I feel like you kind of have to be able to get to the point where you can be yourself around people without any sort of stimuli or any sort of like altered substance. I think. Is it like it's one of those things where like if you actually get results on that type of thing, it feels like it could make it more habit forming. Like you have people who you can't really relax until they have a beer or something. It's like if you use that as a crutch, it's kind of. I think it's gonna feed itself a little bit to the point where you get like where you feel like you can't really go around people unless you have that thing. Yeah, that's probably not a great idea.
First, like, because I seen clips of you talking about like
Yeah.
doing
Doing math.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. He had this thing for a while where I think he would do meth to lean max. He would do this thing where he would break his like cheekbones, like microfractures or whatever, with a hammer to, I guess, make his cheeks more pronounced. I think the whole idea is that he's kind of his body is a playground, kind of that he messes with to try and look smacks. That is effectively his shtick. Mogging.
how did that start?
Well, so that started because I went on a trip with some buddies, and you're not really too sure all the time what's in like some of like maybe the Miami cocaine. So we just opted to do meth, which we knew
Miami cocaine. That's obviously that's famously impure, isn't it?
was going to be more pure. So that's kind of how that started. And then you actually take a look at the science of what meth actually is, and it's really not too far off from just your traditional run-of-the-mill Adderall. So Adderall
I guess I don't know.
is dexamphetamine, right?
Yeah, it's a
We
different
were
derivative.
taking dextromethamphetamine, so really not that much different, just a bit longer.
Because that's how science works. I could be wrong, but I think just because it has some of the same ingredients, it's not like it. Technically, all of the elements are just atoms and neurons. No, electrons, positrons. What is it? What is that? Electrons, neutrons, protons. They're all kind of combined from the same types of, particles. They're just the way they're arranged gives them vastly different characteristics. So again, the notion that some chemical formula is similar because it has similar. I don't know about that. It's not exactly hard science.
Of a half-life, because my goal was not only just for the productivity and the psychoactive benefits of methamphetamine, is also for the appetite suppression, right?
Yeah.
Didn't the Apple guy take LSD or something to kind of expand his mind or something?
Trying to look smacks a little bit with meth. So that I agree that that's a little bit crazy, and I just want to clarify. I never advocate anyone to do this. I'm just like,
No, just looks maxing. We're talking about this whole thing right here. I kind of have a weak chin, so that's my power right there. It feels like my facial hair kind of helps with that a little bit.
this is what I did. But I
Yeah.
don't think people should take stimulants. I think more people are going to go about stimulants in the wrong way rather than the right way.
Yeah.
So just right off the bat,
I don't know if there's a right way to go about meth. And it feels like that.
do not do that. Any of the shit I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know.
Because there's so many other things. There's so many different peptides and other things you can do
Right.
to suppress your appetite.
Oh yeah, no, I'm on Retatrutide too.
Yeah.
And a pretty hefty dose of Reta. So, I take 15 mg, but I just have such a high baseline appetite that like I don't really have time to do cardio.
This guy's also like 6'2", and I think he was gonna go somewhere. I don't know if he ever did or if he's still going to go somewhere to get rods put in his like legs, so he's 6'4" or something. It's like, sweet glory. It feels like a lot of risk for what he effectively just describes as, hey, I want to get chicks or something. Or mogging, I believe that's the term he uses. It's technically not just about getting chicks, it's about looking better than other men, which is kind of, gay. A little bit gay.
These days with like streaming and stuff. So if I want to go on like a really heavy shred, I was just like math maxing.
It just sounds insane.
I know, yeah, it does sound insane because like I'll sit here and I'll like explain it and I'll just be in like a fully monotone voice. But it's like, yeah, I'm doing math. So I know it's bad, but I haven't.
It feels like he's a little bit nervous. That's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's a glitch people have, I think, sometimes, where like if you are really comfortable with people, you'll start to get animated and you'll actually use your hands more. Do you know, it's actually another weird thing. I notice this, I think, when I'm talking to either my parents or my brothers or like people I knew growing up or something like that, I feel like I almost use a different tone of voice. Like I'll actually use a higher tone of voice with them than I would with like just people that are my friends or something like that. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. Maybe it's just a degree of like, this person precedes me in age, and consequently there's type of, I don't know, dynamic there, psychological wise. I'm not for sure. Meekness, perhaps that's the right word.
Haven't done math in a while, so for like 2 weeks now. I don't plan on restarting.
Okay.
So
Said everyone ever. Oh yeah, I quit meth a couple weeks now. I don't plan on restarting. Yeah, that's kind of the point, but I don't know.
So we're done.
Yeah, good for him. But I feel like he has the arrogance of youth perhaps on his side. I think he's literally like 19 or something. I don't know what he is now, but it's he is quite literally the youngest and dumbest individual kind of in the scene. Maybe I don't know about the youngest, but
You don't have. They didn't get you on the addiction
he has the arrogance of youth. All right.
inside yet.
No, dude. Being addicted to drugs is like, I don't know. It's kind of a lack of willpower, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's certainly like more
Ha.
addictive things, like a lot of opioids and things like, or something like benzos, which make you like actually dependent.
Yeah.
Whereas stimulants, you just like feel bad. You don't really have the same drive that you do when you take them for a long time, and then you discontinue your usage. Yeah, the drive goes away, but you're not necessarily dependent. So
Yeah.
I was able to quite easily get off of this.
Is that the most
And he's been off of it for 2 weeks. Good job.
extreme thing you think that you've done for the look maxing sort of world?
I would say that how early I started TRT would
It was weird. Never mind.
probably be
Yeah,
the thing
yeah.
that would be the most extreme, and just the introduction of things like HGH and aromatase inhibitors extremely young would be the
Aromatase
most
inhibitors.
extreme.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
That's
Like,
generally the
it
consensus.
just makes it you can't
I would say
taste
that, in my
things.
opinion, that doesn't really seem that extreme to me. It seems very logical, but that's just like what gets the biggest reaction out of people.
Okay. This is a little bit like just pure speculation. His voice sounds a little bit like slow in cadence. There's like no way he's on something right now, is there?
I would say the meth, in my opinion, would be more.
It kind of sounds like he's got like a little bit of a stoner type of voice.
Over the line.
Yeah.
When
And so you started taking testosterone. You were how old?
I was 14.
Dude, that's in.
And to be fair, that maybe that's just an affectation. That he's on a podcast with someone who's popular. I think Bradley Martin's pretty popular, anyways. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, if you're in that scenario, you might be nervous and you might just behave a certain way. But it does feel like his kind of
Insane when I hear that.
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if you ever noticed it. Like if you ever watched any of Hassan's stuff, you can tell. I think I'd mentioned this before, but there's this notion of, so you have what is effectively like a head voice, like really high, it's up here, and then you have a normal talking voice, like a chest voice, and then you have a stomach voice, and that's kind of what Hassan does sometimes. Hassan Piker. It's funny as I'll get it, but you can literally tell he's got this voice down here, and it's just like, and it changes like depending on what scenario he's in. It's kind of interesting though.
So
So what's the logic behind that? You think that it's going to help you grow? Because it's more the growth hormone is going to help grow.
Yeah. Testosterone is not for, vertical height growth. It actually will serve to
For horizontal.
detriment you, which a lot of
Right.
people don't realize because of the aromatization into estrogen. That's going to cause your growth plates to fuse, right? So it was more for facial masculinization, going for a more dimorphic look, and developing like the facial bones, things of this nature. Just going for like an overall masculinized look. Early in
Eh, too much of a good thing. Like I think it can be good to try and work out and crap, but this ain't it.
to my life,
Yeah.
Hi, I'm JT, and I made Result Hunter, the search engine for conservatives. Let me just tell you what it does. First of
No.
all, big
For the record, it seems like highly dubious. Whatever angle that thing is coming from, it is highly like, oh, a search engine for, like, I don't want my search engine to be patently biased. Of course, it probably is, but yeah.
So we got to talk about the whole goal of the looks maxing thing is like, from your perspective, because this didn't become. I feel like I don't know when did looks maxing actually start to become like a talking point.
Well, I would say that it became like a well-known, like trendy, like joke back in 2023. August of 2023 is when it skyrocketed in popularity, but it was mostly just like a lighthearted thing. It was more just like joking around, like mewing, maybe like people doing this stupid shit with their job. So that was 2023 was like the first push. I would say now this is like a new
I feel like there, again, like too much of a good thing. Like there's a point to be made where you can try to make yourself look better, but it feels like there's a point past which you go where it's just like this avaricious thing where like it will never be enough. The more you alter your body, the more you're just like, no, just a little bit more, like. And it feels like at that point, you've gone past the point of, I want to look good, just because I want to look good. Versus, like, this type of insatiable, I want to look good so that other people compliment me or do whatever. Like, where you're almost, like, kind of tapped into a different type of motivation that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And it's not going to let you rest anytime soon. And it feels like it's just not the greatest of great ideas. Like, yeah, I don't know exactly where the delineating line there would be, but
iteration of looks maxing that I'm kind of talking about now, which is actually what looks maxing was always meant to be, was like doing whatever it takes to ascend type of mentality.
ascend. I know I should mention this before. This guy he's got to be like 5 weeks away from starting a cult or something. Maybe he already has one. It's just doesn't have all the pomp and circumstance of a religious cult.
So that kind of got lost with like the first popularization, because like a lot of the creators weren't really like tapped in with the actual looks max community. But now I'm saying, like, guys, like, this is serious, because I talk a lot about the ideology of why should you looks max, why is it so important.
Yeah,
That's
what I want. So
yeah.
Because candidly speaking, like, obviously I understand to an extent the way you look affects the way that you're received by people.
Right.
Right. So taller people.
No, I'm not sure to what extent I believe that. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't affect it, but I think your looks will only really matter until you meet and talk with a person for like over 20 minutes. Right, the more you know a person, the less I think their looks have a tendency to matter. I think there's actually studies along this line that effectively past 1 year, like if you've known the person for longer than a year, with regards to like choosing mates or something, that effectively the looks like drops way down in importance to almost functionally zero, perhaps. Because it feels like, again, past a certain point, you get past the surface level with a person, their looks start to matter a lot less than anything going on upstairs. Like that's how we really connect to people versus like a very superfluous. I can look at a person and they're aesthetically pleasing.
Normally are looked at maybe a little bit more respected just because like it's just like a default thing that
Absolutely.
humans sort of see.
Yeah, just evolution.
And then
Sorry, no, I'm not sorry. I'm supposed to interrupt them. Okay, I'm supposed to be transformative. The idea would be that I think instinctively we almost associate good genetics with like with competency or something like that. So you will naturally kind of look at people who are pretty and almost assume that they're gonna do better or that they're gonna be more competent or something like that. I think it's an actual thing.
visually, yeah, people tend to give more opportunities or more action in any sense, not even necessarily like sexual relations, all that, just like
You know,
even
it's
men to men are.
You know, it's actually a weird thing. I thought of this as a type of mind reading. And when you look at how people's eyes move, I have a theory that it has something to do with like where it's almost mirroring their thought processes, where you could almost count the thoughts they're jumping to, like the different jumps they're making in their heads, because they're like. I thought it'd be kind of an interesting notion to chase.
More like, I'm more apt to sort of give you the time of day to hear you out if they're attracted to you, or I'm not saying it's like a guy on guy thing, but like just in general.
It's just a subconscious bias. It's the halo effect.
But it's also
That might be the term halo effect. I think that's what I heard it called.
a little bit of a feminine trait.
Yes, it is super good. No, I just think
Caring to some to some crazy degree how you look, because we were doing this pod last night. I mean, I've talked about this plenty of times, but I was with Steiny. We were talking with Sky Bree about like why are people so concerned like in interrelationships with men and women, where
I think there would be a point to be made that women, I think, on average, tend to maybe care more about how they look, and maybe that's kind of a socially conditioned thing. But I think I think people maybe tend to demonize some of these things and say, "Oh, it's men doing this to." Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think a lot of this might just be a naturally occurring phenomenon. Like I don't think women have so little agency that they can just be manipulated by men into wanting any like blank thing. And I think a lot of this can be more easily explained by, hey, men and women have natural differences, naturally occurring things that delineate them from one another. So like, yeah, I don't know to what extent I agree with that, but it does seem to be the case that women will be more vain about their looks, whereas men will be more prideful about something maybe they can do or how strong they are or stuff like that, perhaps.
it's like, men look for women, and one of the highest sort of things that they look for is the way that they look visually, right? And the highest thing sort of women look for is financial security, so like money, right? Those are the two sort of trade-offs.
Well, is that really true though? The highest thing that women look for is definitely still looks over wealth. I think that's been very easily disproven by like a lot of the self-report studies that we've seen, and just like stuff with
I would have heard stuff kind of going in the other direction a little bit. Well, I take that back. I'm not saying they don't like go for looks, but I don't think it's a type of like facial beauty thing necessarily. I think it would maybe be more to do with. I think there would be studies that would show that women maybe tend to go for like a certain like physical look, perhaps. Like there's obviously still this type of maybe instinctive, like if a guy looks strong or looks like he can take care of you, that's a thing, obviously. But obviously I think also it might depend like whether or not they're looking for like a one night stand or whether or not they're looking for something long term. Like the thing that might get a person into bed with you won't necessarily get them to marry you, I assume. This is not my area of expertise, but I think that's kind of the way it would shake down. Depends what they're like looking for in terms of a relationship, rather than just what's going to get them to sleep with you.
dating apps reporting their data. So I don't really think that's true at all.
You think that women look for
for looks.
For looks more than anything.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that most women? I guess in the short term that might be true, but like in the long term, do you think that that's what's true?
I think that, you know, when it's time to actually have a partner in the long term, that might come into play more. But, you know, a lot of these women won't even give you the time of day to, you know, prove your value, prove your.
I feel like that's more kind of a localized truth. We'll call that a subjective truth. It doesn't mean it's not real, but it just means I don't think that is the universal standard. I think because of the place where this guy is, because of the type of girls who he meets, that might be his perspective. I don't think it's the broader kind of notion of it. Like, it might depend where you meet the girls and what, like, I think there's a selection bias, because I think at one point he would have worked in a club as a bouncer. So yes, those types of girls, probably you're going to get a very specific type of girl who's coming into the clubs, right? I think in a broader sense, the types of women you would meet at work or at church or at some sort of function or perhaps just on dating apps in general, I don't know if they would necessarily be the same. You might get a little bit of a different breed of women.
Income if you're an ugly mother, right? So if you can't even have that first interaction go well, there's no way to build a rapport with women and, you know, be this guy who's got a high income, because you never even had that door opened, right? So looks are 100% the most important driving factor in relationships for men and women. And just circling.
Oh, 19 years old and he's figured it out. I don't agree with that.
Back to the thing about it being feminine to care about your looks.
Not necessarily.
And to be fair, he is 19 years old. So presumably he's dating other like 19-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever people. Maybe that's also different. Maybe there's an age thing in here as well.
Necessarily, like, I'm not saying.
Yeah. I do agree with you. I think it's feminine only because women are the only, you know, people who are right now caring about their looks, but that doesn't necessarily make it feminine in, you know, your pursuit of improving, you know. It's just something that they traditionally have cared about, you know, but there's nothing inherently feminine about looks, Max.
It's it just seemed, I don't know. I guess my perspective of it is like, there's so many more things that a man could focus on. Not that, you know, if he can't make himself look better, right? I'm not saying like you don't do any of the things to make yourself look better. I do believe that. But to some extent, it's like there's so many other sort of buckets in your life that you could improve on that would also make you more sought after. And I do understand what you're saying, where if there's no initial attraction, that maybe
super mega based.
Be that no matter how much money someone has, maybe they're just not even opening that door. But I do think that changes as you get older. I think as you get older, for both sides and both sexes, people are looking for different things. I think when you're younger, they're definitely looking for that, right? But I just think it evolves.
Sorry, I'm not advocating for just again.
Well, I think you would be right that there is a lot more you can do as a man who's unattractive to kind of build yourself up. Like if you're a woman and you're ugly, you're pretty much right. There's really no getting around that.
Oversimplification. I think it's also probably because of the place where this guy hangs out and the type of people that go there. You would maybe have what you would consider like just it's like a glorified, I don't know, mutual aid harem or something. Like it's where people go to get laid. And that's kind of what they do. In a lot of cases, what you're doing with other people is you're hanging out for a completely different reason that has nothing to do with having sex or something like that. And you're talking with these people and you're associating with them, right? Ostensibly for the purpose of socialization. Now, being or getting into a relationship can be an incidental of that, but it's not necessarily the reason why it happens, in my mind. So I feel like that's a very different dynamic that exists in the world he lives in, where he's kind of like exclusively trying to associate with women to get with them versus, you know, any sort of like real world scenario where you're just associating with women and maybe a relationship forms.
As a man, you could increase your income. You know, you could become a high status person. But the problem is that a lot of people leave out this key piece of nuance is that you have to, you know, succeed so much in terms of, you know, your annual income or how high status you are to compete with people who are good looking, right? So maybe we're sitting here talking about it, influencers or some other red pill guy who are like
Arm's still braced. I don't think he's relaxed yet. I'm just armchair psychoanalyzing this guy, aren't I?
like top percentile stat. Like this is not, you know, your status and your income. Like that's not going to be achievable by the average person like listening to the podcast, right? So whereas maybe improving, you know, 20 percentiles in looks is much more achievable, which is why, like, as a general rule of thumb, I think that looks maxing is a better way to improve yourself as a man than income and status. I think it's
So-
just more
okay,
realistic.
So you're, because it's a lower hanging fruit to be able to do.
Yes.
I see. For the majority of the population.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I like to.
It just maybe this isn't true in this again. Different circumstances, different types of people, but it feels like what women often tend, I think, to like. Again, not my area of expertise, but I think what women tend to like is a guy who doesn't care so much what people think. And this feels like antithetical to that. The whole notion of, like, at least the degree to which he takes it feels antithetical to that notion of, like, that's kind of a typical manly like, it's a trait I think that that women maybe look for. They want a guy who's not, like, who is his own person and who can be his own person regardless of what other people think, who's not constantly this cloying, attention-seeking sort of person. And I think beyond that, they like people who are driven, people who know who they are and where they want to go in life, in my mind.
Speak in sociological terms. Like I don't really like to, and then people will say, "Well, what about this guy?" It's like, well, what I'm talking about is across societies. So yeah, looks is going to be much easier for the average person to improve upon because to become high income and high status enough to where it actually like means something is going to serve to halo you. You really have to like push the limits hard. Like even making like $1 million a year, right? Top 0.025 percentile in the United States. Going against a good-looking guy, you know, you're probably still.
It kind of feels like he's assuming that the only goal here of most people, I guess in this case, they are literally talking about getting mates. But it feels like for people, to indulge something that is so singularly useful to the degree that he does, which to almost to make it your life a little bit, is just not really possible. You indulge in your work, which will get you success and be useful in multiple ways, or you indulge in social skills, which again will be useful in multiple ways. It's one of those things where it's just a better use of your time, because even if you don't get the girl, you're still going to be able to, you know, utilize it in a much like more way. Even being strong is something that makes you like more functional in some ways, right? But just literally only like looks maxing is like, okay, yeah, sure. That's great for getting a wife. I don't know how useful it is in necessarily a lot of other areas, unless you're going into like advertising or you know, news anchor, actor, model, something.
Going to be at a huge deficit there, you know?
In the dating market, you're saying.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? So do you think the
Right, you know what? I've had enough of this little jackass. No, maybe he'll grow up, but it feels like at this point he speaks with the perspective of a child yet. And maybe that, oh sweet glory, I'm so old. But no, he literally he does feel like he has a very young person's idea of the world. Hopefully he grows out of it, honestly. And to be fair to Clavicular, he does come off as knowledgeable. He does speak well about this type of, you know, plastic surgery or the substances he's taking, right? he comes off as knowledgeable about them, at least in the stuff I've seen him in. I just tend to think maybe with regards to more like human nature or the like, he seems to be inexperienced. It's a sin most of us are guilty of at some point, but you see his perspective seems to be a little bit warped with regards to that type of thing. Anyways, you can look this up if you want. Clavicular's most extreme looks maxing methods and the truth about attraction. Bradley Martin Raw Talk. Alright. Moving on.
My husband used to ejaculate prematurely until this.
My hubby is ejaculating so fast, and then he gets so anxious about it, it's starting to.
And I know that a lot of people say, well, I ain't doing in life. I'm.
Alright. Alright. Video by Dr. K again. Your success is unprocessed trauma. Your success was unprocessed trauma.
And I know that a lot of people say, well, I ain't doing.
There's actually a point to be made here where, like, it feels like the notion as to why, like, the idea of creativity, I think it has a lot to do with your willingness to go places perhaps that other people won't, right? You know, why did Columbus discover America and not other people? Well, it's because he was willing to travel there. And I think that bravery or that willingness to go places other people won't, I think a lot of creativity has to do with location. It's not so much something we just produce spontaneously. It's literally you go somewhere and you discover a perspective that not a lot of people have, or you discover something that a lot of people haven't discovered, right? That's what I think kind of lends itself to that, or is the essence of it, perhaps. All right.
In life, I'm doing nothing every day. You're not doing nothing. You're not sitting there staring at a blank wall. You're doing lots of technology, which you amount as nothing, but it's not nothing. You're intellectually engaged constantly. You're constantly motivated to do things that are non-productive, but you're still doing a lot. I got bullied a lot.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people do. Yeah, if you took all the energy that goes into Twitter every day and put it into something productive, maybe that. Never mind.
Lot playing video games, there was a part of me that got punished for getting excited about this. And what you will find by people who have a lot of insecurities early on in their lives, they were punished by excitement and curiosity. The truth of the matter, the sad truth of the matter, is that human.
Okay. This is completely unrelated to this, but I had a theory about this type of thing. I'm going to call it clown making instead of king making. Like, it'd be like clown making as opposed to king making. Right, the notion that in theory you could take someone like, well, on the left you could take like Hassan Piker or the weird, kind of pretty princess yet fakes ghetto coded Jasmine Crockett. That's on the right you could take someone like Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes, and in theory you could effectively popularize the worst sorts of individuals from the opposing party to make the opposing party look bad. You're effectively like astroturfing idiocy. I feel like this has to be a thing, right? It has to be a thing that people have done. If I were some sort of dastardly political maneuver, I feel like that would be one of the first things that would occur to me. Yeah, let's make this idiot over here look great. For the record, there's actually kind of a little bit of a dangerous game to play, though, because if you misestimate the problems involved or the population involved, you could very easily do too good a job at popularizing them. Anyways.
Beings as organisms are driven by trauma and insecurity. I was motivated by trauma and insecurity. Getting better through therapy vanished my motivation.
I'm gonna have to switch where I think he keeps putting this picture there. Alright. Now, hopefully he doesn't switch it.
Help. Recently, I've been doing lots of development inside myself, really focusing on therapy, shadow work, etc. From this inside work, I resolved a wound that kept me trying to.
I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you should never let ambition go to waste, but I think it can certainly be a good thing if you allow for some sort of more stable ambition to fall into place, something that's not just like trauma based or something that won't be resolved and leave you kind of stranded. something that's more reliable.
Prove myself to others and majorly to myself. After this, my motivation to achieve things really disappeared. I do feel a lot better now, but my motivation to strive is gone. I never had an adult with healthy motivation to mirror and learn from. How can I start to burn other fuels to motivate myself? This is an emotional question.
There's the notion that it feels like to some extent, healthy motivation is a prerequisite for like healthy behavior. Like as fruit of the poisonous tree. Like I don't know to what extent you can use something like just I want to be better than everyone else and not have it go, very wrong perhaps in some regard.
Not a rational one. I do know that there are lots of things worth doing and striving in this world. I just can't feel them.
It feels like it would tend in that direction in a case, right? It's the entire premise of integrity is that a person with integrity will be good anywhere, anytime, any place, right? It's not dependent on someone's watching me, therefore I'll be good, right? They would do that anywhere. If a person is prideful, if they care about what other people think, they will do good things a lot of the time. When there's no one around, when they can get away with it, when there's some sort of loophole, they will do that. And consequently, their behaviors are not reliable. They're doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason, and consequently, it's different, right?
How can I become more sensitive to this new fuels for achieving? So I used to be motivated by insecurity, and I went to therapy, and I dealt with my insecurities, and now I don't feel like doing anything. So my wife tells me, Alok, you should make a video about all these high performers you work with. Like, what do they do that other people don't? So I do some executive coaching, which means I'll work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, people like that. But the reason I was reluctant is, like, honestly, what separates most of the top performers from the rest of us is that they were traumatized in the right way. So I want to tell you all the story about a client of mine. Client is second generation.
Yeah, it's true that it feels like people who are quite successful would probably tend to be deviant in some regard. Hence the success, hence the fact that they stand out in some regard just by dint of being successful. They are abnormal.
So parents migrated from a developing country. Dad worked really hard, became incredibly successful, went from 0 to $32 million over the course of about, let's say, 25 to 35 years of work. So after about 30 years in the workforce, they started from scratch and had a net worth of about $32 million. So as this person who came from nothing started to become more successful and started rubbing shoulders with other people who were more successful, they entered the world of the elites, right? So they became successful and they didn't go to Harvard, but they sure as hell started going to dinner with people who went to Harvard and Stanford and went this place and that place and all these prestigious institutions.
I feel like maybe one of the worst things I guess I don't know about this. Again, not my area of expertise, but I feel like one of the worst things you could do about this type of thing is one of the worst things you could do for your family, perhaps, at least, is put yourself in a scenario where you associate exclusively with other rich people. Like making friends with other rich people and creating this type of weird feedback loop with your kids where your kids are raised in this environment.
And people who have vacation homes.
Only pretty much associate with these types of people. It almost I don't know. It feels like there's an unhealthy type of incestuous thing that would go on there. And there's a reason why, most family fortunes, I don't even think most of them make them past, the second generation. I think it's 70% maybe by the second and 90% by the third. I'm not sure. You'd have to look up the actual statistics on that.
And yachts. So as this person entered this world, as the dad entered the world, they started to become a little bit more narcissistic. Maybe they were a little bit sociopathic to begin with. And so it became really important, right? So they started entering this world of children as trophies and everyone is comparing. And so they started to really pressure their kids. You got to be the best. You got to do it the right way. This is the way successful people do it. We're not going to be these scrubs. We don't care about compassion or doing good in the world. You got to be the best. You got to be the best. You got to be the best. And this is where there's another thing that I think really separates out the right trauma from the wrong trauma, which is that parents who are hypervigilant, parents who are always up in their kids' business, parents who don't let their children get away with relaxation. Those are the kids that are the most messed up. So the really sad thing is that one of the, I think, top 3 or top 5 videos in the depression guide is of
Well, there's this element too that I think poverty itself can breed a type of brutality almost, where you'll have people who effectively, like, they came from nothing, and it's like they were kind of in a dog-eat-dog world, and if they bring that mentality into kind of like I don't, it's understandable and yet not ideal, perhaps.
Video about conditional love. Basically, like, we talk about unconditional love, but for many people I've worked with who are depressed, this is a good example of this person. The reason they're depressed is because they grew up with conditional love. I'll only love you if you ... Their whole sense of self is about performance. So if I achieve, then I am worthy of love. And they'll go their whole lives trying to make their dad happy, trying to make their dad proud. If y'all want to know what separates high performers from people who are not high performers, a big chunk of them, and there's a selection bias here because a lot of high performers are loved by their parents. Arguably, I'm one of them. My parents certainly loved me, and I guess I'm doing okay now. But honestly, if y'all want to know, a big part of it is parents who don't love their kids. Dads and moms who say, if you want my love, if you want my respect, I want to be able to show you off to all of my friends. This is all coded, right? It's not...
Well, this goes back to what I was saying in the other segment here. It feels like there's a point to be made where you can want to do the right thing. You can want to be better for some, like, advantageous reason. But if you get locked into this notion of being better for other people, it feels like this thing of avarice and an insatiable desire that will never be fulfilled. It will never be enough that you did blank. You'll always have to do more and more and more, and you will never be content with what you're doing, or what you've accomplished, rather.
Super explicit, right? That's what really causes people to achieve. And I want y'all to look at some people with very public profiles, we won't name names, who are very successful. How psychologically happy do you think these people are? Are these people content?
Gaza is at a tipping point. The adults are
peaceful. Is $1 billion enough? Is $100 billion enough? Is $20 billion enough? Do people need even more money? Hey y'all, if you're interested in applying some of the principles that we share to actually create change in your life, check out Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health.
So this is a guide that explores this process. How does experience shape us as human beings? Trauma is all about walling off or suppressing things that are overwhelming. They cannot control their emotions, so their emotions control them.
So check out the link in the bio and start your journey today. The truth of the matter, the sad, sad, sad truth of the matter is that human beings as organisms are driven by trauma and insecurity. Literally, the way we're wired is to be driven by this stuff. There's a really simple way to understand this. Why do negative emotions feel so bad? If you ask me my opinion, I would say shame is the most painful emotion. Now, I haven't had crippling depression in the way that some of my patients have, so arguably theirs is worse. But if you think of...
To be fair, people have been... Like, there are plenty of people who've K-worded themselves because of shame. So I'm not going to stand here and say that it's not a very powerful thing.
About why is shame so damn painful, right? So our negative emotions hurt so much because they're designed to induce behavior. The number of times I got bullied in my school and was like, never again. The shame that I felt was so profound. I wanted to change. I wanted to be a different person. I wanted to show them. I wanted to work so hard. Our negative emotions are very powerful motivators. They're the most powerful motivators that we have. And there are many times, if you guys have seen some of the interviews that we do, you know, sometimes I'll ask people towards the end of an interview when they come in with a problem. And I'll be like, do you even want to change this? And the good ones, like good ones in the sense that, like, the honest people, will be like, no, I actually don't. I came to you with this problem. I don't even want to change it because this is the problem that keeps me going. This is the problem that pushes me to succeed. And so if you want to know why you can't solve your problems, the first question you should ask yourself is, what is this problem doing for me? And it's scary. It's so scary, the kinds of answers that you will get. The reason that I am hopeless, because if I have hope, I can try and I can fail. And if I fail, that'll hurt a lot. So I'd rather choose hopeless. I pick despair over hope.
Change is always, it feels like it's always difficult. It's almost like a really terrifying aspect to think that you can get yourself stuck in a mindset like that, where you literally just can't find your way out. It's like, that is unsettling in the extreme.
Because
the fact is, it doesn't even necessarily, in situations like that, it doesn't even necessarily matter if there is like an objective way out. The fact that you think there is no way out makes it's like you won't even try. And you're kind of dependent on someone else or Deus Ex Machina to come along and kick you in the ass and get you to try something different or to fix what you're doing. Again, it is an extremely unsettling type of proposition.
Protects me more. So if you're someone who has been driven by negative emotions, by insecurity, I want to be someone, I'm tired of being this pathetic person, I'm going to turn myself into someone, and then you find that you have healed that wound, oh no, now your motivation is gone. What do you do? So there are a couple of really good things. You have a lot of good stuff ahead of you. The first is to understand time. This is a huge, huge, huge problem that I see anytime I get questions, anytime people post on the internet. You will notice there is an absence of quantification. No one thinks in terms of numbers. So people will say, I tried therapy. And my question is, how long? No one ever says that. I've tried therapy.
Numbers hurt my head.
3 times.
To be fair, that literally sometimes math, it's not my thing. Feels like it's not the way my brain works well. In any case, it's not my niche. It's not my strong suit.
How long? What modalities? This doesn't work. I put myself out there and it didn't work. How many times? For how long? So anytime we're talking about solving problems, and the advice that we get on the internet, there's no temporal quality. People don't say you should do this for this amount of time. So the first thing is, when you solve your motivational problem, let's say like you heal yourself and you have no motivation, there is absolutely a lag period. This is the first thing to know. I would say it's somewhere between 3 months and a year on average. So I don't know if this makes sense. Your body doesn't create a new system while another one works. You have to fix one thing, and then there is a need, and then your body makes the alternate system. It doesn't plan ahead. It's just now that this motivational system is gone, other motivational systems will start to grow. And a really good example of this is if you look at the research on people who go through a quarter life crisis or a midlife crisis, they have this particular period where they have to check out. So I don't like this life. I'm going to remove myself from this life, and then I will make a new life. But that period of limbo is actually developmentally necessary. There must be an intentional or even physical removal from the situation. Either you need to mentally check out or you need to physically move yourself out of this, the space. Necessary. So you have to have a limbo period. That's the first thing to understand. There's nothing wrong with you. If you healed your trauma and you're like, now what? Absolutely. Because for many, many years, you've been motivated by this system, and now that the system is gone, you don't know what to do. It's normal. The good news is that this is when other things will start to rise. So
what's the phrase? Nature hates a vacuum.
Your body, your brain, your mind is naturally designed to create motivation, right? So I want y'all to look at how hard people have to try to be still. A good example of this is I had a conversation with Stephen Bartlett. I think it was on his podcast, where the thought of being still and relaxing is like terrifying to him. Most human beings have a lot of difficulty being still. And I know that...
I don't know if I do, but maybe that's more just a laziness thing.
A lot of people say, well, I ain't doing shit in life. I'm doing nothing every day. You're not doing nothing. You're not sitting there staring at a blank wall. You're doing lots of technology, which you amount as nothing, but it's not nothing. You're intellectually engaged constantly. You're constantly motivated to do things that are non-productive, but you're still doing a lot. So the key thing...
Oh, I remember what I was going to say, but it does feel like he was talking about this before, but like it feels like... Actually, maybe I got this from one of his videos. It might not have been on this one. But he was talking about the notion of how our brain almost has cycles that it goes on. As like a standard like thing that it goes through where you almost have to, like, in order to get your brain like fully out of one way of thinking. Like the thoughts that you're thinking will almost come around again, if that makes sense. Like I don't know how to explain it. That does feel kind of the way though. Like you literally you'll be thinking about things. He was mentioning that like the idea was if you deprive yourself of something you want for long enough, that desire will become less. But I do feel like though that desire will come around again, and you'll have to deal with it again at some point. Right? It's like it's kind of, I don't know if it's on a kind of almost a codified sort of cyclical thing. Wow, that made so much sense. I can't even believe it. I am quite...
Here is that the positive motivators are not as evolutionary potent as the negative motivators. Curiosity gets drowned out by anxiety every day of the week. A drive to create, creativity, gets squashed by shame every day of the week. And so once you enter this period of healing, there will be a feeling of no motivation, but the creativity is there, the curiosity is there, the joy for life and to experience, all that stuff is subtle. So in the yogic system, there's a huge...
All right. It's a good way to end it. If you want to be creative, be brave. All right? If you want to be original, be brave. Tell people the truth. You might enjoy it. That doesn't mean be a jackass, okay? But I do feel like, though, that actually telling the truth can. It's habit forming. You do it, you start to like it. All right, moving on. We're going to look at a thing I looked up the other day. I was looking up the term Captain African American, which was coined by a certain lovable yet senile older fellow with glasses and a goatee. For the record, I was looking it up. I think I was looking at with regards to the notion of Captain America, Captain African America, Captain African American. For the record, like I love Sam Wilson as Captain America. The notion of making him, I love Sam Wilson as Falcon. I think the notion of making him Captain America was a completely ridiculous idea. I think everyone liked Sam Wilson as the Falcon, right? He was awesome. He was enough for us. But like the notion of, hey, we have to turn him into Captain America and give him a shield, which is it in no way makes sense with any of his abilities. Namely, his wings. Like, the whole notion of his stupid as all get out. It's like, it feels like it was the ultimate kind of white trying to appease black people's, whatever, in a way that they think black people will want. I'm not for sure. Like, it feels like, if anything, they should have somehow done, maybe, you could have done a retrospective type thing on Isaiah Bradley, and if you weren't too preachy about it, I think that could have been really cool. But no, we have to give the shield to a black guy because black people will like that. The dude was already like a war veteran and a patriot. Like he was already awesome. He was an awesome character, and they just screwed it up like nobody's business. All right. No, but I was looking up that, and I found Robert Smalls, who was a Civil War guy. So, amongst some other, there are like if you look up on Safari or something, you'll come up with other examples of people who were African American captains. But Robert Smalls was an American Republican politician who was born into slavery in Beaufort, South Carolina, during American Civil War. The enslaved Smalls commandeered a Confederate transport ship in Charleston Harbor and sailed it from the Confederate-controlled waters of the harbor of the U.S. blockade that surrounded it. He then piloted the ship to the Union-controlled enclave in Beaufort, Port Royal, Hilton Head area, where it became a Union warship. In the process, he freed himself, his crew, and their families. His example and persuasion helped convince President Abraham Lincoln to accept African American soldiers in the Union Army. I'll start at the beginning. All right. Robert Smalls was born in April 5th, 1839, in Beaufort, South Carolina, to Lydia Polite, a woman enslaved by Henry McKee. She gave birth to him in a cabin behind the McKee house at 511 Prince Street in Beaufort, South Carolina. He grew up in the city under the influence of the low country gula culture of his mother. His mother lived as a servant in the house, but had grown up working in the fields. Smalls was favored by McKee over the other enslaved people, so his mother worried that he might grow up not understanding the plight of the enslaved field workers, and she asked for him to be made to work in the fields and to witness whippings. It's kind of the ultimate tough love, huh? When he was 12, at the request of his mother, Small's master sent him to Charleston to hire him out as a laborer for $16 a week, of which he was allowed to keep $1, the rest of the wage being paid to his master. Smalls first worked in a hotel and became a street lamplighter. In his teen years, his love of the sea led him to find work on Charleston's docks and wharves. Smalls worked as a longshoreman. Okay, now I have to look up longshoreman. A dock worker or waterfront manual laborer who loads and unloads ships. All right. A rigger and sailmaker. He eventually worked his way up to becoming a wheelman, more or less a helmsman, though enslaved people were not permitted that title. As a result, he was very knowledgeable about Charleston Harbor. At age 17, Smalls married Hannah Jones, an enslaved hotel maid in Charleston, on December 24th, 1856. She was 5 years older than he was, and she already had 2 daughters. Their own first child, Elizabeth Lydia Smalls, was born in February 1858. 3 years later, they had a son, Robert Jr., who died at age 2. Smalls aimed to pay for their freedom by purchasing them outright, but the price was steep, $800, equivalent to $27,000 in 2024. He had managed to save up only $100. It might have taken him decades to reach $800. Escape from slavery. In April 1861, the Civil War began with the Battle of Fort Sumter in nearby Charleston. In the fall of 1861, Smalls was assigned to steer the CSS Planter, a lightly armed Confederate military transport under the command of Charleston District Commander Brigadier General Roswell S. Ripley. Planter's duties were to survey waterways, lay mines, and deliver dispatches, troops, and supplies. Smalls piloted the Planter through the Charleston Harbor and beyond on area rivers along the South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida coasts. From Charleston Harbor, Smalls and the Planter crew could see the lines of Federal blockade ships in the outer harbor, 17 miles away. Smalls appeared content and had the confidence of the Planter's crew and owners, but sometime in April 1862, he began to plan an escape. He discussed the matter with all of the other enslaved people in the crew except one, whom he did not trust. On May 12, 1862, the Planter traveled 10 miles southwest of Charleston to stop at Coles Island, a Confederate post on the Stono River that was being dismantled. There, the ship picked up 4 large guns to transport to a fort in Charleston Harbor. Back in Charleston, the crew loaded over 200 pounds of ammunition and 20 cords of firewood onto the Planter. On the evening of May 12th, the Planter was docked as usual at the wharf below General Ripley's headquarters. Its 3 white officers disembarked to spend the night ashore, leaving Smalls and the crew on board, as was their custom. Afterwards, the 3 Confederate soldiers were court-martialed and 2 convicted, but the verdicts were later overturned. Before the officers departed, Smalls asked Captain Raleigh, I don't know, if the crew's families could visit, which was occasionally allowed, and he approved on the condition that they depart before curfew. When the families arrived, the men revealed the plan to them. This was the first the woman and children had heard of it, although Smalls had recently told his wife Hannah. She had known that Smalls longed to escape, but hadn't realized that he was formulating a plan and intended to execute it. She was taken aback, but quickly regained her composure and told him, "It's a risk, my dear. It's a risk, dear. But you and I and our little ones must be free. I will go where you die, I will die." The other women were less steadfast. They cried and screamed when they learned what they had stumbled into, and the men struggled to quiet them. Later, once the shock had worn off, those women admitted that they were glad for a chance at freedom. At some point, three crew members pretended to escort the family members back home, but they circled around and hid aboard another steamer docked at the North Atlantic Wharf at about 3 a.m. on Smalls and 7 of the 8 enslaved crewmen made their previously planned escape to the Union blockade ships. Smalls put on the captain's uniform and wore a straw hat similar to the captain's. He sailed the planter past what was then called the Southern Wharf and stopped at another wharf to pick up his wife and children and the families of the other crewmen. Smalls guided the ship past the 5 Confederate harbor forts without incidents as he gave the correct steam whistle signal at checkpoints. The planter had been commanded by Captain Charles C. J. I don't know if that's Raleigh or Raleigh. It looks French. And Smalls copied Raleigh's manners and straw hat on deck to fool Confederate onlookers from shore and the forts. The planter sailed past Fort Sumter about 4:30 a.m. As the near-free slaves approached Fort Sumter, their apprehension grew. It was the most heavily armed of the Confederate forts and tended to be manned by the most suspicious soldiers. One of the men aboard said, "When we drew near the fort, every man but Robert Smalls fell to his knees, giving way, and the women began crying and praying again." As the planter approached the fort, several men urged Smalls to give it a wide berth. Smalls refused, saying that such behavior would almost certainly arouse suspicion. He steered the ship along its normal path slowly, as though he were merely enjoying the early morning air, and with no particular hurry. When Fort Sumter flashed the challenge signal, Small again gave the correct hand signs. There was a long pause. The fort didn't immediately respond, and Smalls now expected cannon fire to shred the planter at any moment. Finally, the fort signaled that all was well, and Smalls sailed his ship out of the harbor. The alarm was only raised after the ship was beyond gun range, for rather than turn east towards Morris Island, Smalls had sailed straight for the Union Navy fleet, replacing the rebel flags with the white bed sheets that had been brought by his wife. The planter had been seen by the USS Onward, which was about to fire until a crewman spotted the white flag in the dark. The sheet was difficult to see, but the sunrise arrived, which allowed viewing. Witness account. Just as number 3 port gun was being elevated, someone cried out, "I see something. It looks like a white flag." And true enough, there was something flying on the steamer that would have been white by application of soap and water. As she neared us, we looked in vain for the face of a white man, discovered that we could when they discovered that we would not fire him, there was a rush of contrabands out. What was it? As she neared us, we looked in vain for the face of a white man. When they discovered that we would not fire on them, there was a rush of contraband. What are we talking about here? Used the military during the Civil War to describe a new status for certain people who'd escaped slavery or those who were affiliated with Union forces. All right. out of her deck, some dancing, some singing, whistling, jumping. Others stood looking towards Fort Sumter and muttering all sorts of maledictions against it. And de heart de sol. The heart of the soul. Souf? Wow. Generally, as the steamer came near, and under the stern of the Onward, one of the colored men stepped forward and, taking off his hat, shouted, "Good morning, sir. I brought you some of the old United States guns, sir." That man was Robert Smalls. The Onward's captain, John Frederick Nichols, boarded the planter, and Smalls asked for a Union flag to display. He surrendered the planter and his cargo to the United States Navy. Smalls' escape plan had succeeded. Nice. The planter and description of Smalls' actions were forwarded by Nichols to his commander, Captain E.G. Parrott, in addition to its own light guns. The planter carried the four loose artillery pieces from Coles Island and 200 pounds of ammunition. Most valuable, however, were the captain's code books containing the Confederate signals and a map of the mines and torpedoes that had been laid in the Charleston harbor. Smalls' own extensive knowledge of Charleston's region, waterways, and military configurations proved highly valuable. Parrott again forwarded the planter to Flag Officer Samuel Dupont at Port Royal, describing Smalls as very intelligent. Smalls gave detailed information about Charleston's defenses to Dupont, commander of the blockading fleet. Federal officers were surprised to learn from Smalls that, contrary to their calculations, only a few thousand troops remained to protect the area, the rest having been sent to Tennessee and Virginia. They also learned that Coles Island fortification on Charleston's southern flank the Coles Island fortifications in Charleston's southern flank were being abandoned and were without protection. This intelligence allowed Union forces to capture Coles Island and its string of batteries without a fight on May 20th, a week after Smalls' escape. The Union would hold Stono Inlet as a base for the remaining 3 years of the war. Dupont was impressed, and he wrote the following to Navy Secretary Washington. Robert, the intelligence slave and pilot of the boat, who performed his bold feat so skillfully, informed me of the capture of the Sumter gun, presuming it would be a matter of interest. He is superior to any who have come into our lines, intelligent as many of them have been. All right. Smalls, having just turned 23, became known North as a hero for his daring exploit. Newspapers and magazines reported his actions. The U.S. Congress passed a bill awarding Smalls and his crew the prize money for the planter, valuable not only for its guns but also for its low draft in Charleston Bay. Alright, where was it? Southern newspapers demanded harsh discipline for the Confederate officers whose joint shore leave had allowed Smalls and his men to steal the boat. Smalls' share of the prize money came to about $1,000, equivalent to $47,000 in 2024. Immediately after the captain, Smalls was invited to travel to New York to help raise money for formerly enslaved people. But DuPont vetoed the proposal, and Smalls began to serve. Smalls was invited to but DuPont vetoed the proposal, and Smalls began to serve in the Union Navy, especially with his detailed knowledge of mines that lay near Charleston. However, with the encouragement of Major General David Hunter, the Union commander at Port Royal, Smalls went to Washington, D.C. in August 1862 with Reverend Mansfield French, a Methodist minister who helped found Wilberforce University in Ohio and had been sent by the American Missionary Association to help formerly enslaved people at Port Royal. They wanted to persuade Lincoln and Secretary of War Edwin Stanton to permit African American men to fight for the Union. Although Lincoln had previously rescinded orders by General Hunter, Fremont, and Sherman to mobilize African American troops, Stanton soon signed the order permitting up to 5,000 African Americans to enlist in Union forces at Port Royal. Those who did were organized as the 1st and 2nd South Carolina Regiments, colored. Smalls worked as a civilian with the Navy until March 1863, when he was transferred to the Army. By his own account, Smalls was presented at 17 major battles and engagements in the Civil War. After capture, the Planter required some repairs, reformed locally, and went into Union service near Fort Pulaski. The boat was valued for its shallow draft compared to the other boats of the fleet. Smalls was made pilot of the Crusader under Captain Alexander Rhind. In June of that year, Smalls was piloting the Crusader on Edisto, for the love Sound, when the Planter returned into service. An infantry regiment engaged in the Battle of Simmons Bluff at the head of the Edisto River. He continued to pilot the Crusader and the Planter while enslaved. He had assisted in laying mines, then called torpedoes, along the coast and river. Now, as a pilot, he helped find and remove them, and serviced the blockade between Charleston and Beaufort. He was also present when the Planter was fired upon several fights at Adams Run and down the Daho River, and the battle at Rockwell, and at John's Island, and at the second battle of Poco. More of the same. All right, that was fun. Oh, good. Good. I wonder if there's actually an end to this, or if you just keep going indefinitely or something. Alright, where was I?
Your vaults are full.
Yes, merit. Agent drink. Well, that's not happening. Alright. Now, I just wondering if I can get to the third. I have to be somewhere over here, I think. No, can I? No, I don't think I can go through that stuff yet. I definitely can't go through the gold stuff yet, I don't think. I might be able to go through that. Let's see. What is right here? Let's try. So I think that's good. All right. Right.
Task complete.
All right. Now it needs to be cooled down.
Your henchman is in combat.
How dare you?
Feel my wrinkled fist.
Your luck held this time, but nothing lasts forever.
A strong, independent black woman. That's important. AI doctor, what the? All right, train counter. All right, here we go. What is this? Counter agents? Spin doctor. There we go. Why not? I'll go with 8. And then... Does this mean that it's just kind of dependent on one another, or that these guys recruit from these guys? So whatever is the... Spin doctors, ballets, socialites. Alright.
A trap has been triggered.
Alright, sounds good. Why is it there's no gold making schemes in these things? Alright. Let's get that crap out of here anyways. That can't hurt. That can be canceled. I just want to get these out of the way. I don't know why they're still there. That mission is over. Oh, there's one.
Salaries paid. scheme has succeeded. A criminal network has been upgraded.
You know your mission, Agent Steele.
I got the area.
A scheme has succeeded.
Crap. Set up some more traps or something. Why can't I build these yet? Do I have to construct them or something? Engineering. Oh, turret crafting. Okay, yes, you literally have to craft them. Alright, wonderful. Ray gun. Taser? What's the difference here? Alright. Oh, much stronger than its handheld counterpart. Flicker when it fires. Pow pow. Pew pew? Not pow pow.
Task complete.
Alright. Wonderful.
At last, I have my very own agent. Oh, how the tables have turned. Say something, agent.
Eagle to Sparrow. Code word Monarch is status green.
I didn't understand any of that.
Monarch is status red. Repeat, Monarch is red. Situation Fubar. Need extraction route.
Get out of my sight and do some espionage.
Alright, I'm thinking we need a couple more types of minions. Alright, and quantum salt, wonderful.
Why do I have a headache?
Our sortie into the unknown has reached its limit. We discovered a new branch of science, but lack expertise.
Do you want to kidnap someone and learn their secrets?
If you wouldn't mind.
Let's get this over with.
Alright. So, I feel like... what do we need in this ecosystem? Break room? Bigger break room? Use a bigger vault, too. So I have to wonder if I should just get this out of here and put the vault on the other floor. Let's go dirt.
Yes. Eliminate all targets.
1739. 17 by 39, alright. Oh, goodness gracious.
You lost this battle the moment Steel took the field.
Yeah.
That's how your minions go. No wonder Agent Steel prevailed. Your minions are nothing more than target practice.
No. I'm too old for this. You do it.
My agents train in every combat art there is.
All that glitters.
You lost this battle the moment Steel took the field. Your minions are nothing more than target practice.
Are they even trying?
Yes. Eliminate all targets.
What?
Oh! Eee! Oh!
So you actually can fail. Did not know that. Okay. No, I feel like to make it matter, I have to actually quit. Okay. I'll jump on a different one. We'll start a new one here. All right. All right. Create new. Evolve. Instantly completes any mini trains. Maximilian. Alright, let's go with this. Try a different island. Montañas Vermelhas. Alright. Alright. I'm gonna go with normal still. I literally did not even know that guy could die.
New recruits are here.
Use the camera controls to move the camera around your lair. Now use the rotate controls to rotate the camera.
Okay.
You can use the zoom controls to zoom in and out. Use the tilt controls to tilt your camera.
Hold on. Who do you think you are, giving...
I'm here to help. By telling you exactly what to do next, in a friendly and helpful manner.
But you are here to do everything.
Correct. Step 1. Tell us what you... We're eager to please. And also, eager to live. Please stop looking at me like that. Your lair will be much more impressive once it has more rooms. Open the build menu.
Alright, you know what? I think I'm maybe done for that for now. I want to do some other stuff here, so... You guys have a good sort of day? I have to delete the other ones now, don't I? Yeah, you guys have a good day. / good weekend / whatever. Alright.